everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Waking Up with Wisdom, a spiritual documentary show about our unique journeys as it pertains to spiritual awakening, what it was like, what happened, and what we are doing to help the collective now. Today's special guest is Fonda Clayton, and Fonda is a best-selling author of Stop Giving Your Power Away and is also creator of the Juicy Life podcast, which I love to listen to your podcast. Fonda is committed to her clients in creating a life that is in alignment with body, mind, and spirit by giving a voice to their emotions and feelings. And I have known Fonda for about 6 months now. So she's a beautiful soul, and I'm super honored that you are joining me today. Welcome, Fonda.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here, Jennifer.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about your journey. How did you become a best-selling author? How did you write a book? And I really want to talk about your podcast too.
Okay. Well, I love how when people say the name of the podcast, like everyone giggles. So it's just like it's confirmation that I'm on the right track.
Mm-hmm.
The journey to the spiritual awakening, I guess, it sounds like everyone says that, but it is really one, right?
Yes,
it's been
yeah.
kind of, it's been several years. It kind of started when my mother was transitioning from cancer. She had stomach cancer. And so it starts a little bit before that. I had been chronically constipated as a child and started to really look into diet and what all that meant, and using myself as a guinea pig.
Yeah, and that's how we all do that.
Yeah. It all starts that way. So like I used to pull all-nighters and read all night and drink tea and just read. But I was just always conscious of my body just not working optimally. And then I would say, so I was like a teenager. And then at 24, my mother passed away. But before she passed away, she had extreme pain. But I had the ability to touch her and to soothe her in such a way that it took the pain away. And that's kind of sparked something. Yeah, that kind of sparked something for me. But, as a girl child in America, you're taught that you already have a trajectory. That's the way you're supposed to go, and you don't deviate. So my path was fashion. And I was already in college, completing a degree that my parents had told me I needed to go back to school and complete. So that's what I did. But there was just kind of like this knocking at my heart, like massage. And so this whole journey of body work, came to be. Fast forward 21 years later, and in between that, having people on the table, seeing them kind of have like emotional breakdowns, not knowing what to do with that, I became a life coach while being a massage therapist, because as they kind of like were opening up, I wanted to be able to supply them with tools so they can go back into the world safely.
Were you helping them release blocked energy that they didn't?
Absolutely.
Amazing. So it was probably a unique experience that they were feeling and you were feeling at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that they felt safe enough to do that with me meant that it was timely for them to do that anyway. But I wanted to not freak out. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I needed to be able to, okay, so this is what you do, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, and check in and make sure that everyone was fine, because my training and most of my massage career was in New York City. And so if someone is, like they dash in from the streets of New York City, they get this body work and they've got to go back out into the world. I want to make sure that they do so in a safe way.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow. So I'm sorry that you lost your mom at such a young age. I lost my mom. I think I was about 35 when my mom passed. So I can understand that in your journey all the way up to here. So how did you get to writing and leading to the podcast and everything?
Well, I basically wrote the book, and I wrote the book on a dare. And I did the podcast to actually support my life coaching business. Okay. I wanted to create places where people could experience me, because my way of being and my way of coaching, abrasive is not the right word, but you definitely do have to be ready, because by the time that you've come to me and my business, you've kissed a couple of life coaching frogs.
Yeah, same
you
here.
know. And so my position is to hold space for you for the thing that you say that you want to do and the person that you say you want to be. And I can be very, very firm, because I know that I might be your last ditch effort, and I don't want you to blow that opportunity for yourself, right? And I identify as a healer. Not that I am magical, but I am the facilitator. I'm the holder of space for the vision that you have for yourself. I'm the safe space. I'm the container. And so there's no time to bullshit at that point. You know what I mean? Like, let's get in there. Let's do this. And so the book came. I was writing a totally different book, Jennifer. And I was using a beta version of Evernote. Do you remember Evernote?
Yes, I do.
And I went back to my computer and it was gone.
Oh my God. I've had moments where that, and I'm pretty sure you had like a mini heart attack.
I was like, okay, Lord, what do you have for me now? Like, I've got this deadline. I really want to show up for myself. This is really important to me. What am I supposed to write? Because I didn't take
guys, show up for yourself.
That part. And so I was like, okay, what do you want me to say? Because I hadn't taken notes on the first book. And so I didn't really have any remembrance. And so I just I cleaned my mental state. And then this book just came pouring out of me. And I was just like, okay, God, I don't know. I don't know if the people are, I don't know. Because I wrote the book in 2014, 2015, somewhere in there. And I wrote it in a couple weeks, And I was just really nervous about it, because it's so sacred. It's our sacred place. It's the place in which we sit. It's a book about how we give away our power in order to obtain love, right? Because we never actually had ownership of our vaginas, of our womanhood, of our personhood, of our bodies. So we were taught to care for someone else using our body, but we've never actually lived inside of the body. And this story came up. This was the red thread throughout my massage work. They wouldn't say the word vagina, right? But they would be talking about a lost love, or they would be talking about some kind of traumatic childbirth experience, or they'd be talking about all these different things that I understood intrinsically about how, when we don't stand in the seat of our power, not knowing that that's the very thing that we're giving away, is the very thing that others are kind of siphoning from us.
Absolutely.
And so Yeah. That's how Stop Giving Your Power Away was birthed.
Beautiful. I love that. And most, most women don't know that, and myself included. So I am learning that. I have been doing a lot of womb healing,
Mm-hmm.
and understanding, what happens in an intimate moment, and the fact that, that is power. There's a lot of, especially with women, we hold a lot of trauma within our womb area. So it is,
Yeah.
when it comes up a lot, like the stuff you mentioned, it's, you would not connect it to that. It's either a past lover or situation. It could even be, being in an office setting that, most women, especially in the 3D matrix, think that they have to do certain things, sexual acts, to get ahead within their business or whatever. And it's a good point that you said, that that's kind of how we're raised and seeing it, because what's coming to mind is shows that we grew up watching where women had to do that kind of stuff. So
Sure. Sure. But even as little girls, I mean, rare is the little girl, especially in my generation and beforehand. You speak when spoken to. It's better to be seen than to be heard, right? So you're used to holding it all.
mhm.
And the sacral, the pelvic floor is where something is going to be birthed. And unless you actually physically push it out, it can't be released. So you're constantly holding this, thought bodies, emotional bodies, thoughts and feelings and disappointments, right? So you're going to give birth to something or to someone. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Love that.
even if we're not physical or natural mothers, we get to give birth to something.
Mhm.
And those of us that have a menstrual cycle, we literally every fourth week are releasing life.
Shedding. Yes, exactly.
We're shedding. And so unless you think of it that way, you resent tapping the period. You don't even see that as powerful. You divorce yourself from your body, but yet you're living in your body, but then you want someone to love you when you don't love all of you.
Yes. Ding, 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 ding. Um, that I'm glad you brought that point up too, because that's something that I am really looking into, because I have been perimenopausal for 3 years now. So researching what the transition from mother to crone is, I'm also getting a lot of message that, Gaia in itself, what people don't understand is when women do have their monthly cycles, that is a sacred time and moment for a woman, because you are giving birth, you're shedding, you're letting go of things. And I've been actually following this, but a lot of women are getting more on cycle, more in tune, more into listening what Gaia has to say when it comes to that time period. Where I step in, I'm like, what is the next phase for when a woman is going through that? Because I'm almost at a year, which means I'll hit full menopausal. So, but I've been pairing for about 4 years now.
Well, it's so interesting because I am a woman of a particular age. I am 51 and I still have a period. However, in my research, I found that you actually hit perimenopause at 35.
That's when mine hit.
But I didn't know this until a year ago.
It
And
also,
so this is, say,
it also, it triggers. So when women go through, they'll start about 35. I'm young, so I'm 42. My mom was done at 42, so I'm kind of following in her steps. But when a woman is is changing hormonally, it will trigger an awakening. They actually, way back in the day and in certain tribes, when a woman changes, they go on a year-long sabbatical because to me, it's like reverse puberty. So that's where like all the irritability comes up. But what happens within your body, and I may have this wrong, but the pituitary gland starts overproducing. And so it's trying to get this in your ovaries and your uterus to connect. That's why women have increased sex drives when they're older, around that 35 period, because their body literally is telling them, hey, I'm going to be shedding. Yeah, I'm going to be shedding.
Right.
So your chemicals increase, which can trigger a spiritual awakening. That's why, when I go back and I watch, I'm a Golden Girls fan. I loved watching Golden Girls. And, Blanche was always scared about having to change. That's when people went crazy, and in the South, we talk about that. No, it's because you're actually activating a muscle you haven't used in so long that it can get to be overwhelming. So,
yeah, so many different directions to go with that. The one thing that I did want to put into this space is that, women aren't talking about perimenopause. They talk about personal summers, right? Because I'm actually in Atlanta right now. And so women are still not calling a thing. And it's aggravating because it's like, okay, where are the women to help women transition into this next period? Like, I'm not ready to go to the pasture. I'm not yet a crone. I don't feel like I know enough to be a crone, but I am a vixen. Yes, I am. And I probably will always be vixen-esque, right? Because Scorpio is all up and through, who I be. And so, but I really feel like in your 50s, people want to start to disregard you. But actually, the volume should be turned up.
Yes.
Because there's more contribution. It's like, look here, you may not want to do it this way, but this was my experience. And I'm not trying to superimpose that onto your experience. I'm just trying to give you kind of like a bird's eye view of one of the possibilities, that you don't have to do it this way. You don't have to suffer alone. You're not crazy. It's not all in it is all in your head, but it's not your imagination.
Correct.
Right. Yep. And because in that validation of, this is my story, right? So this is my version of womaning. And Jennifer, it's not supposed to be your version of womaning. But when I get to see your version, then I have the freedom to do my version. And that's beautiful.
I love that. Yeah, I'm being called to speak out about it more, because that's where I feel, and it is like, it's amazing how your thought patterns and the way you view the world changes, and like you said, it's transitioning into that crone phase, and where I'm like, I'm 42, but I don't want to,
Well,
I'm not
going to adapt American society's version.
Correct.
Right? Like, I don't want you to be shocked that I'm 51. So what? Do you know what I mean? It's like, yes, and. Christiane Northrup is my shero. Her ability to talk about all the different phases of a woman's life and the celebration thereof is again beautiful, because it's like she has grandchildren, she has grown children, they like her pretty good, and it's actually, the other thing is that her version, her viewpoint, as she observes her daughters, helps me think about what conversations I would have had with my mother at this point. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So it's kind of healing, right? So in other words, I think it's so beautiful to be able to take little snippets of how I would imagine that my mother would be, covering me and speaking to me and still loving on me. So,
yeah, because I do that. I think about that with my mother too.
Yeah.
And I will at time to time, we'll have conversations with her about that. And there's like a lot of things because, before I had my spiritual awakening, I was very, very, very stubborn. And so there are many times where I'm like, okay, now I see your point of view or what you were trying to say or your life experience. So, and it's having new conversations with her.
Yeah. That's the one thing about, again, I mean, listen, let me preface and say this. I feel like the thing that for me that's so exhausting about having conversation these days is that there has to be like this long preface disclaimer thing before you get ready to say something contrarian.
Yeah, yes.
Which is so exhausting. Being American, I love it. It's great. With that said, I wish that we taught more about death, and we didn't hold it, because if this is one of the agreements of taking on a human body, then it must die, right? And so what do we do with the afterlife? What do we do with our feelings about those who have passed on behind the veil? What does that say if I dare to be happy and someone that I love is no longer here? That doesn't mean that I don't love them. It means that I love them enough to find happiness. I love myself enough to find happiness, to be happy, that I know that I can tap in and have access at any time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's one of the pieces of having a juicy life. Like, where's the juice? Where's the curiosity? Where's the interest? Where's the question, right? I find that people lose so much. They don't even know, but trying to be so adult, it's just like taking themselves so seriously. And, it's just like, drawing these conclusions. When you draw conclusions, there's no place else to springboard off of. There's no juice in the conclusion, right? It just is. You've picked the fruit already.
Yep. You're exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've had some people close to me recently, well, you know me, I've known you for a while. I put information out there and I know people follow on my timeline. They may not chime in, but there's been a lot of deaths recently going on that are hitting people very close to home. And it is that question of like, what is going on? Because one, as a collective, we're all on this awakening journey and we're all waking up. And two, that veil, like you said, is so thin now that people are realizing that there's a lot more to death than what they were originally taught.
Which is almost nothing.
I know. Yeah, that's it. Like, I was having a conversation with my friend, and I recently watched a show. It's on Amazon. You can find it on Amazon. I don't like the name, but it's called The Ghost Inside My Child. And it is about the ghost inside my child. And
Oh.
and it's got a very, like, when it starts, it's got this eerie kind of, and I'm like, man, the show is good because the show is about kids who are experiencing night terrors, violent dreams. They're saying stuff like they died in a horrific plane crash. They're experiencing past lives. And what is getting these parents is that because we're in the age of information, they are researching what the kids are saying. Like, one of the episodes was the kid that reincarnated was the guy that wrote Gone with the Wind. He kept saying that he died on his farm on a tragic accident, but with, like, from a trailer, and that his mom wasn't his mom, but she had the same name as his daughter. And he was like 3 or 4 years old, and that he had wrote this, he wanted to go to Hollywood, that he wrote this, thing. And she was like, how does he know these things? Well, when she started researching, come to find out, the stories that the child was saying was similar to what happened with the guy. And then to go further, I was like, well, it's good that this information is coming out, but here's another level that humanity's stuck at. These parents are like, well, he's had a past life, but that doesn't mean I have, or that one past life. And people that I've been talking to, I'm like, yes, that's just the layer. You have a past life. You have multiple past lives. The people that you're around at the moment in your family, you've probably had multiple past lives with them as well. Roles reversal. But I'm starting to see, not that I watch Amazon or Netflix that often, but I'll see it pop up on my TV, these types of shows that are coming out, and people are getting more of a wake-up call of like what's really going on behind that veil. And what's amazing too is these kids are choosing to incarnate into families that have very strong religious and Christianity backgrounds. So the parents are really starting to double question their reality because they were raised in a church that said reincarnation did not exist. And they're looking up this information and they're having that, oh, well, this can't be make believe. How is my child getting this information? Some of them were ones that died on the Titanic, and had specific details of the Titanic. And they never watched the movie. They had, they're in kindergarten. They're not learning about the Titanic or anything like this. So, yeah, it's pretty amazing to see that people are starting to have that realization. And I think it is an important topic that needs to be spoke about more because it will help with when you are processing death or when people leave out of your life suddenly.
Or when they contemplate it, I've contemplated it. I've gotten really, really close twice. And it doesn't make you crazy. It doesn't make you mentally ill. It just means that it can mean so many different things. I feel like the blanketing of certain topics is right. So if you just see me as Black, if you just see me as the woman, then you kind of feel like you don't know the story. No, you feel like you automatically know the story.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're not curious, then you miss out on a whole bunch of other things that you might find really interesting. And just on a baseline level, selfishly learn something about yourself. Right? And well, that's another Pandora's box, because being selfish is actually a really great thing. It's necessary. But it's really about undoing all these definitions and all these strongholds and all these all these categories that we've kind of like locked the boxes on. It's just like, oh, we've done that. We've researched that. We know. Versus like, how can we unwind that? Right. So when you were talking about these children who at 3 and 4, like, what is, like, they might know they probably have iPads. They probably all have iPads. So they could find it out. But really and truly at that depth, no. But we're in a generation where the parents were smart enough to retain what they were told. Because when I had imaginary friends, were they imaginary?
See, I'm going back to my childhood, and I feel that too. And I know, like, because I'm able to walk through the dimensions. I was really walking through dimensions when I was younger, and into probably different time lives and different places. Was I really doing that? I believe I was, but I was also told that it was.
You were talked out of it, right?
Yep.
It's just your imagination. You know, my favorite word was if. Favorite word was if, like, because my wonder was, the capacity for my wonder and my imagination was enormous. Mm-hmm. But I was told, in order to keep me safe, right? I'm not pointing the fingers at my parents, but it was to keep me safe in this little girl world, you know, that you shouldn't ask if it's true. You should know that it's true. Mm-hmm. Right. And so I stopped wondering. And so then I put my imaginary twins to bed. But this year, actually, for my solar return, I called them back in because I realized that they're my guide. I asked them if they were my guides, and they said yes. So I was like, cool.
You're
but
right.
They're not. You know what I mean? Like, but they're so cool. Like, they're so really cool. They're not my primary guides, but they just like come in from time to time because they're almost like, and they're very mischievous, right? And I'm just like, that's fun that I get to call that back in, and I get to, you know, cultivate this new relationship, this new old relationship, but with fresh eyes. So it's a lot of fun.
Yes, I love this conversation because it is getting, and that's another aspect of yourself that you're getting to know because they are connected with you, and you're also remembering and healing the stuff from your childhood. I love that because it goes on all levels.
Yeah,
physical,
it does.
Spiritual, personal.
Yeah. Well, it's all personal, isn't it?
It is all personal.
Yeah. Even business.
Yes. Yes. Especially doing what we do.
Especially doing what we do.
Yeah. That's the difference. Because we make it, we know that we're breaking down those programmings that were placed on us and stripping away who we truly are and doing what we came here and were created to do, and not following a program or doing things because of someone else is telling us that that's what we need to be doing, or vice versa. So we have a big job to play, and we both know it, and we take it seriously, and that's why I love it.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Well, do you have anything else to say to our viewers, and tell them a little bit about, do you have anything new coming up?
Well, I'm going to reboot the Juicy Life podcast. She's been on a hiatus. I kind of went on a hiatus after, getting through 2020. It was difficult to speak continually not that I personally had a bad year, but I just didn't know how to sit with it all because I have different viewpoints about the veil that is COVID-19. I feel like it was a portal of possibility. And I just didn't know if I had, that my heart space had enough armor to deal with what the kickback of what I wanted to share. So I do want to reboot that. And I think I am ready to have the conversation about, what I see and what I feel about this portal that's still open, actually. But right now, the thing that I'm most excited about is my community on Mighty Networks. It's called Juicy Woman. Because, there's a theme there.
Yeah.
And it's, you could find that at fondaclayton.com/community. And we're just talking about all things being woman, just witnessing each other, doing our version of womaning. Because no matter what your roles are, whether you be a mom or not, whether you be married or not, or being in something, preparing for the love of your life, you need to know that it starts and ends with you, and you need to have you and keep capacity of you, no matter what those roles are. And that's not something that we're taught, but it's definitely something we have to unlearn in order to have different results than our aunties and our mommies and our grandmothers. We've got to be willing to do it differently.
Yes, that's beautiful, beautiful, and so important. And it is. Because even in the older generation, I'll just drop this before we wrap this up, but like my aunt, she's in the older generation, and I know that they say in the Matrix, Morpheus says you don't wake up people after a certain age. And that is because they're in that mentality that that's just how it is. Well, I think with us, especially in that transitioning into being the wise women, we are aware that we need to change that programming and doing things different. So I'm excited to be on this journey with you, girl. Thank you so much for stepping into your leadership role and doing everything that you're doing to help the community.
Well, thank you for having me on your show. I really appreciate it, Jennifer.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for being on the show. I'm really honored that you agreed to come on. And guys, all the links to go check her out are going to be down below. Join her community. And I have not read your book, but I'm really intrigued to read it. So is it on Amazon?
It is.
Yeah, I think I saw it on Amazon. I'm going to go grab a copy. You guys grab a copy as well. And make sure you like, subscribe, and share this information out. If you would like to join the show and you have a unique spiritual awakening story that you'd like to share, I'd love to interview you. So thank you guys for tuning in, and thank you for joining me today.
Bye.
Bye, guys.